Alright, so the notes for today are on section 2.3, which is graphing from slope-intercept form. Go on ahead and write down the learning target on your paper. So by the end of the day today, your job is to be able to graph a line in slope-intercept form. So that's one thing that we're going to practice. And then the other thing is we're going to write the equation of a line in slope-intercept form from a given graph. So we're going to be practicing both of those things. The notes today start off with a couple of definitions that are really important. So the first one is slope. So the definition for slope that we talked about yesterday was the rate of change of a line. In slope-intercept form, slope is the number that goes in front of the letter x, and it's always going to be the letter m that stands for slope. So you want to remember that slope's going to be the letter m. And you can try to remember that by remembering that slope tells you how the line moves. So slope's going to tell us whether we go up or whether we go down, and then how many we go to the right. The Y-intercept is the other letter in slope-intercept form, and so that's the b. So in slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b, the b tells you where the graph begins. The Y-intercept is the point where the graph crosses the y-axis. So when we're graphing one of these, when we're being given the points or given the equation and putting them on a graph, the b is going to tell us which point to put on the graph first. It's going to tell us where the graph begins. Now, the part with the x won't always come first. Sometimes the part with the x will come second. But you're always going to ask yourself, is the y all by itself? And then if the y is all by itself, the number in front of the x will tell you the slope for the line, and then the y-intercept, or the number that's all by itself, the constant, that will tell you which point to start with when you're graphing. So in example number 1, we're given a graph. So this is the part that they're telling us, and they want us to finish filling in the table. So 2 goes with 2, that one's already here, and then 4 goes with 5, that one's already here. But it says 0, and then there's a missing spot. So 0 goes with -1, and then 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 goes with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So 6 goes with 8. And then 8, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10. 8, well, it kind of looks like it's going to go, I don't know if it's going to go with 10. So what we can do to figure out this one, since it's off the page for the graph, is we can continue the pattern. To make a 2 turn into a 5, you add 3. To make a 5 turn into an 8, you add 3. And so for this one, it's actually not going to be 10. Remember, you would add the 3 one more time, and so when you continue that pattern, you would get 11. So that lets us fill in the chart. To find these answers to the questions, there's a couple of different ways that we can think about it. A says find the slope using the table and using the graph. I'm going to start by showing you how to do it using the graph. Before I show you using a table, let me just grab a colored pen. There we go, this will work great. So to find the slope of a line, when you're given the picture, you can pick any point you want to on the line, and you're going to try to count to the next place that there's a point. So I'll start with this one, but you could start with any of them. To get from this point to this point, the first thing you want to see is that you're going up. That means the slope has to be positive. I go up 1, 2, 3. So for this one, my slope is going to be up 3. And then you always go to the right. And then it goes 2 to the right. And so you can check that by counting again on the next one. You can go up 3, and you can go 2 to the right. If you wanted to count from this point all the way up to this point, you could also go up 6 over 4, and then remember that you always have to reduce your slope. So the slope of this line is going to be positive 3 over 2, and so that's the number that I got right there. The y-intercept of the graph is right here, and I like to circle the y-intercept. That's the point where the graph crosses the y-axis. So the b for this graph is going to be -1. And sometimes you'll see it written like this, but I also want you to write down that you could write it like this. So you can also write the y-intercept as an ordered pair. 0, -1 is the point where the graph crosses the y-axis. To write the equation of the line in slope-intercept form, we have the m, we have the b, so we have both of the things that we need. So it's going to be y equals, the m will go in for the slope, the x stays x, and then it's normally y equals mx plus b, but when the y-intercept is a negative number, you're going to switch this, and that's going to be the negative number right there. So the equation of this line is y equals 3/2 x minus 1. It starts at -1, and then it goes up 3 over 2, up 3 over 2. So y equals 3 over 2x minus 1 is the equation for that line. Question number 2 is a little bit different, because on this one, they gave us all the numbers on the table, and they want us to start by graphing them on the graph. So be careful. -3 goes with 0, 0 goes with negative 1, 3 goes with negative 2, and then 6 goes with negative 3. So those are going to be the points on this one. You can go ahead and use an ID card or just, try to draw it as good as you can. But this would be the points that form that line. So before I start answering the question on this one, it is helpful to notice that the numbers are going down, and then if you look at the line for the graph, the line is going down too. So I'm going to expect my slope to be negative. I'm going to find the slope using the graph. Remember, you can start with any point you want to. You don't have to start with the one all the way over here, and then you can go to any point you want to, but most people just go to the next point when they're doing this. So it's always going to be, you're going to ask yourself the question, how many do you go up or how many do you go down? In this case, you're going down. So I go down 1. So that means my slope is going to be negative 1 over, and then you always go to the right. So you're going to count over 1, 2, 3. So my slope for this one's going to be negative 1 over 3. I can count it again to check. Down 1 over 3, down 1 over 3. And if you wanted to, remember, you could count from any point to any point. To get from this one to this one, you'd go down 2 over 6, and so that would reduce the same way. And to get from this one all the way to this one, you would go down 3 over 9, and that would reduce to the same fraction. So that's why we always reduce our slopes. If you ever have a fraction that you can reduce, you want to go ahead and reduce it. This one says find the y-intercept. Remember, I recommended that you circle it. I think that's a good habit to get into. So for this one, my y-intercept also happens to be at the point 0, negative 1. On your notes, write it both ways, but on the test you only have to write it one of the different ways. It doesn't matter to me which way you write it. And so for D, when I write the equation of the line in slope-intercept form, remember, to write the equation of a line in slope-intercept form, I only need two things. I need to know the m, negative 1/3 x, and then it's plus b, but in this one, the b is a negative number, so anytime it's a negative number, you're going to switch the plus to minus. So the equation for this line is y equals negative 1/3 x minus 1. It starts at negative 1, and then from there, I go down 1 over 3, down 1 over 3. Question number 3 is the same as question number 2 in terms of the information that they give you, but the answer to the question is going to be different, so we will do this one together today. Let's see, negative 4 goes with positive 4, and then negative 1 goes with positive 4, and then 2 goes with positive 4, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 goes with positive 4. So I'm going to start by graphing the table, and then remember, you can use the edge of your ID card or just something that'll help you make a straight line. So notice that this line looks different than the other one because it doesn't have a positive slope or a negative slope, it has a slope of 0. To get from any of these points to the next point, you don't go up or down at all, and then on this one you go over 3. Actually, I think they all go over 3, but it doesn't matter because 0 divided by anything gives you 0. So the slope of this line is 0. The y-intercept we can circle. Now on this one, the y-intercept wasn't one of the points that was given to us. 1, 2, 3, 4. But for this one, the y-intercept is the point where 0, positive 4. So here's why this one's a little bit different. The slope of the line is 0. So y equals 0x plus 4, but we're not going to leave it like this. We have to fix it. 0 times anything is 0, so 0 is going to make this part go away. So the answer to this question is y equals 4. Anytime you have a horizontal line with a slope of 0, it's always going to start with y equals. If it was a vertical line with an undefined slope, then this would start with x equals. We'll practice one of those later because they're a little bit different, but for now, here's your example for number 3. Questions 4, 5, and 6 are different because on this one, you're given the picture, and so you have to work from the picture to find the slope, find the y-intercept, and write the equation for the line. This breaks it out into 3 pieces. The question could just ask you to write the equation from the picture, but because it's the notes, I want to practice having you find each of the things. So the first one says find the slope of the line. I know that they put these numbers on the paper, but they're on the other side of the line from how I normally write it, so I'm going to rewrite on this one to help you find the slope. To find the slope, you can start at any point you want to on the line. And remember, you're going to go either up or down, but then you're always going to go to the right. So to get here, I'm going to count up 2, and then I count 1 to the right. So my slope for this one, my m, is 2 over 1, which is just 2. So when I write that into my y equals mx plus b, I'll use the number 2. And then my y-intercept, I'm going to circle that. It's right here. My b is 2 Or remember, if you wanted to, you could write it as 0, 2. You could write it as the ordered pair. Both of those are correct. So the equation for this line, it's a lot of 2's. It's y equals 2x plus 2. This one's kind of confusing because both of the numbers are the same number. So technically you could put them backwards and not get it wrong. But in the examples that we'll do following, you'll have different numbers. So it'll help you practice putting them in the right spot. Let's see, on number 5, so for this one, my slope is you go up 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's up 4, positive 4, and then you go 1, 2, to the right, except, this is tricky, you have to come down here and look at this axis. You see how they skipped 1 before they put the 1, and then they skipped 1 before they put the 2? The scale on this graph is actually different, so you always want to check the scale when you're doing these. It looks like it goes up 1, 2, 3, 4, and then over 2, but it actually only goes over 1. So the slope on this graph would be 4. And that's not like any magic. Again, it's just because they're counting by a half down here. So when it goes over 2, it's really like it just went over 1. Let's see, the y-intercept for this one is 3. Or if you wanted to write it as an ordered pair, it would be 0, 3. And so for this one, my equation is y equals, and then I put the 4 in for m, and then I put the 3 in for the b. So that would be the equation of the line for this one. It starts at 3, and then it goes up 4 over 1, up 4 over 1, and the line would continue in that pattern. The last one on this page, number 6. Notice that the line is going down, so that's really good to notice ahead of time, because you know right away that your slope is going to be something negative for this one. Let's see, I go down 2 and 1 to the right, down 2 and 1 to the right. So down 2 and 1 to the right. My slope for this line is going to be negative 2. My y-intercept is up here at positive 8. And so my equation for this line is y equals negative 2x plus 8. It starts up here at 8, and then it goes down 2 over 1, down 2 over 1, down 2 over 1, and the points continue in that same pattern. Alright everybody, so these are the problems, question 7. These are the ones that we've been practicing everything for. We're given an equation, and they want us to graph it on the paper. These ones take a little extra time because you have to be really careful when you count the slope out. And I have a couple of things about them that I want to make sure I tell you when you're doing this section. So, some people like to label this with m and b. So the number that goes in front of the x, that's your letter m. I'll do this in red. And then the number all by itself, that's the b. Other people get confused by this, and so they like to come next to it, and they like to write m equals 2/3, and they like to write b equals 1. You can do this either way, or you can just graph it. But if you're finding that you're putting them in the wrong spot, then I would recommend that you do one of these two things just to help you. Okay, I'll probably do it this way on the notes today. The b tells you where you begin, and the b is your y-intercept. So my first point on this one is going to go right here at the number positive 1. Not positive 1 for the x's, you have to make sure you put it at positive 1 for the y's, and now I'm going to count my slope. This is why I tell students that you always go to the right. Ready? You're going to put your pencil on positive 1. The slope is 2 over 3. It's a positive number, so that tells you you're going up. The 2 tells you how many you go up or down. In this case, I'm going up, and then the 3, you always go to the right. So from here, I'm going to count up 2, and then I'm going to go 3 to the right. And then, once I have that point there, I'm going to do it again. So I'm going to count up 2, and then I'm going to count 3 to the right. Those are 3 points that are on the graph, but I want to fit as many points as I can fit on the graph So once you have the y-intercept graph, remember I've been circling that today, I'm going up 2 and 3 to the right, up 2 and 3 to the right. I'm going to go back here. The opposite of up is down, so down 2, and then the opposite of right is left, so left 3. And then I'll do it again. The opposite of up is down, the opposite of right is left. The rule for graphing in my class is that you want to fit as many points as you can fit on the line, on the picture. So on this one I could fit 5 points, but on other ones maybe I can only fit 2, and then on some of them I can probably fit a lot. This part down here wants you to name 2 points that are solutions to the line. Solutions to the line means name 2 points that are on the line. So on this one, there's 5 choices for what you can pick. It doesn't matter which ones you pick. I'm going to do -3, -1, so that's this one. And then I'll do, I don't know, 6, 5. So that's this one over here. when you name 2 points that are on the line, it doesn't matter which ones you pick, but just make sure that you actually pick 2 of them. Okay. Alright, red pen. So on this one, here's my m and here's my b. My slope is 5/1. Some people like to put the 1 underneath so that they don't forget about it. And then be careful, because the b isn't just 2, it's -2 on this one. So I'll start by at -2. And then my slope is up 5/1. So I'm going to count up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then go over 1. If I could fit another one up here, I would, but it would be off the paper. So remember, I'm going to go back to my y-intercept, and I'm going to try to do opposite. So for this one, I'm going to go down 5, and that one's also off the paper. So for this graph, you could only fit 2 of them on the graph that you were making. So make sure that you line them up well with a ruler. When you give 2 answers to the questions, you just have to give these 2 points. So 0, -2 is one of the points that's on the line, and then 1, 3 is the other point that's on the line. Let's see. Here's m. I'll put the 1 underneath it, and then here's my b. This one's going to start at +5. And then from there, be careful, because the slope on this one was negative, so I'm not going to go up 2 and 1 to the right. I'm going to go down 2 and 1 to the right, down 2 and 1 to the right. As soon as you see that the slope is a negative number, you should expect that your line is going to go in a downwards direction. And so here will be the placement and location of that line. When you pick 2 points that are on the line, it can be any 2 points that are on the line. So for this one, I'll do 2, 1 and 4, -3, because that's another point that's on the line. Remember, you can pick any 2 points that you want to that are on the line. Alright, so for letter D, this one's a little bit different. The slope is the number in front of the x, so that's -1/3. And then the y-intercept would be the number that's right here, but notice that it's missing. So anytime there's not a number there, it means that it's the number 0. That means this graph is going to go through the origin. So that's my y-intercept that I start by graphing. Now my slope tells me that I'm going -1/3. Keep the negative with the number in the top. So this means I'm going to go down 1, and then the bottom number is how many I go to the right, and you always go to the right. So from here, I'm going to go over 1, 2, 3. And then I'll do it again, down 1 and 3 to the right. I'll go back to the middle. The opposite of down is up, and the opposite of right is left. So I'll go up and left, and up and left. So for this graph, you should have 5 points drawn. And 2 points that are solutions, I'll do -3, 1, this one, and then 6, -2. But you could pick any of those 5 points that are on the line for that one. For E, y equals -2. The number in front of the x is your slope. This one doesn't have an x, so that means that my slope for this one's going to be 0. This -2 is my y-intercept. So my y-intercept is at -2, and then I need to draw a line that has a slope of 0. So that line is going to be a horizontal line. It's going to go from left to right. 2 points that are solutions to the equation are going to be anything where y is equal to -2. So even though there's not points on the graph, I picked -4, -2, and then I'll pick 3, -2, because that would also be a point that is on that line. You can add them onto the picture after the fact if you like seeing them there to match them up with your answers down below, but that's not required. Okay. On letter F, before I can pick my M and pick my B, I want you to make a note on this one that says you need to solve for y. This is why we practiced this in the last chapter. So 5x minus 3y is equal to 12. I can't graph this right away all by itself because it's not in slope-intercept form yet. So I need to do the math to get the y all by itself. I'm going to minus the 5x from both sides. So that's going to give me -3y is equal to -5x plus 12. Remember, this number is usually going to cut in front ahead of the 12. So the -5x goes first and the 12 goes second. That's going to keep it in y equals mx plus b format. And then to finish it, I'm going to divide this one by -3, and this one by -3, and this one by -3. And I really like to write it twice over here so that I remember to divide them both by -3. It's going to be y equals. Now, 5 can't divide by 3, and I can't reduce 5 over 3, but I do know that a negative divided by a negative is a positive. So this is going to turn into 5/3 x. Positive 12 divided by negative 3 is negative 4. So you guys, I do all that work because now to graph the line, this is my slope and this is my y-intercept. And so now I'm ready to graph. I'm going to start at negative 4, and then my slope says I'm going to go positive, so I'm going to go up 5 and then 3 to the right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then over 1, 2, 3. And then if I can fit it, I'll do it one more time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3. There we go. So I could fit 3 points total on this graph. I'll connect them using a ruler. My line had a positive slope. It was going up. And then I can give 2 points that are solution to the graph. So 0, negative 4 is 1 point, that's a solution. 3, positive 1 would be another. And then remember, you could give this one if you wanted to, but on this question I only need to give 2 as an answer to the question. Question 8 is still asking us about y equals mx plus b, but it just looks a little bit different because it's in a word problem kind of format. But our goal for this will still be to write something that's in y equals mx plus b format, and then we'll graph it. An ice cream shop charges $2 for a waffle cone. Each scoop of ice cream costs $1.50. Label each axis. So when it says label the axis, that means they want you to write words down here. So this axis is going to be how many scoops of ice cream you get. And then this axis over here, you can label it cost or you can label it money. It's going to be how much money you're spending at the ice cream store. Alright, so the first one says, what is the slope? It says each scoop of ice cream costs $1.50. The $2 for the waffle cone is just one-time fee. That's how much it starts with. So think about it like, oh gosh, I'm so sorry you guys. Think about it like the cone, yeah, there we go. So here's the cone. I don't teach art for a reason. So the cone in this one is $2. And then each scoop of ice cream, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. Each scoop of ice cream that you add, this looks just like ice cream. Each scoop of ice cream that you add, I'm going to stop now because it's so bad, but each scoop of ice cream that you add adds $1.50. So the waffle cone is going to stay the same. This is assuming that you don't get the ice cream in a bowl, but like in a cup, by the way. So this one stays the same no matter what. This is what you start by paying. I guess you could just get the cone, but there would be no fun in that, but it is possible. So if you got the cone with 0 scoops, you would pay $2. And then if you got 1 scoop, you would pay $2 plus the $1.50. So 1 scoop would cost you $3.50 total, right? Because you're adding on the $1.50 to the $2. And then if you got a second scoop, it would be another $1.50. And then if you got a third scoop, it would be another $1. Oh my gosh, so much ice cream, right? Now I'm hungry. So as you go up, every scoop of ice cream that you add adds $1.50 to your total. So the slope of the line for this one, m is going to be 1.50, or you could write 1.5 if you wanted to. Every scoop of ice cream that you get, it's 150 for every scoop of ice cream that you add on, or that you get. The y-intercept, so here, 150, that's your m. The y-intercept for this one is 2, and that's because it's $2 for the waffle cone to begin your ice cream. And yeah, I know you could get it in a cup, but for the sake of this example, we're just saying that you're assuming that you're going to get it in a waffle cone. So we did all this work. The question doesn't actually ask us to write the equation in slope-intercept form, but we're going to go ahead and we're going to do that. I'm going to do it right here underneath this one. So for this line, if I was going to write it in y equals mx plus b form, it's going to be y equals 1.5 or 1.50. If you want to include the 0, that's okay. X plus 2. That's going to be the equation for this line. That's how much the line starts at 2, and then it goes up 1.5 over 1, up 1.5 over 1. So 4 scoops of ice cream on a cone You could answer this one by just looking at the graph. If you go up from 4 and then you go over, you can see from here that it'll be $8. So that's going to be your answer for C. But you can also do this using your equation if you want to. You can say y equals 150 and then plug in the 4. This would be helpful if they wanted you to figure out like how much money it would cost for 15, right? Something that would be off the graph. So that's going to be 6 plus 2, so you'll get y equals 8. So it'll cost $8 for 4 scoops of ice cream on a waffle cone. And then question D says, oh, the question D is a little bit different. It says if you have $6 to spend, how many scoops of ice cream can you afford if you order a hand-dip cone? How much money will you have left over? So this one's a little bit weird because it says if you only have $6. So let's just look at the graph for this one to understand it. If you have $6, you don't have enough money to get 3 scoops because that would cost you $6.50. So you would only have enough money to get 2 scoops. You would use $5. If you had $6 to spend, you would have $1 left over. So you can use the graph to help you answer that question, but I also want to show you how you can solve it using the equation that you came up with. Just make sure this is in the right spot. So for this one, if you say 150x plus 2, and I want it to, are we going to do less than? No, we're going to say equals. I can only have it equal 6. So if I'm solving this, I'd say 150x equals 4, and then I could divide both sides by 150. Now when I do that division, it's not going to work out to be a whole number. I'm just grabbing my calculator real quick. So when I do the division for that one, 4 divided by 150, I get 2.6 repeating, right? So you can only get 2 scoops of ice cream because you don't have enough money to get a 3rd scoop, and you can't get 0.6 scoops of ice cream. So that's one answer to the question. If you get 2 scoops of ice cream, let's see, so it's going to be 3 plus 2, which will equal 5. So 2 scoops of ice cream will cost you $5. You had $6 to start, and so when you do 6 minus 5, you're going to have $1 left over.